South Africa's economic and fiscal outlook remains bleak. That's the word from Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana. Ekurhuleni Metro police officers deny the accused in the Senzo Meyiwa trial were tortured into confessing. And Joburg Water is warning some of its reservoirs are critically low. These top stories and more coming up on the day that was. Ampule Chidi Jones. All eyes have been on the midterm budget speech by Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana. Government spending has surpassed revenue by hundreds of billions of rands this year. Economists say this may result in Treasury having to borrow more to avoid a debt blowout. Our news teams have been on the ground bringing us blow-by-blow live coverage.
The economic outlook over the medium term remains weak, reflecting the cumulative effect of power cuts, the poor performance of the logistics sector, high inflation, rising borrowing costs, and weaker global environment. The International Monetary Fund forecast global growth to slow from 3.5% in 2022 to 3% in 2023 and 2.9% in 2024. The weaker growth outlook for China, South Africa's largest trading partner, the lower commodity prices, and the risk that the USA interest rate will remain high for longer means global economic environment is less supportive for South Africa's growth prospect. The debt relief engagement arrangement for Eskom outlined in 2023 budget noted that a large portion of outstanding municipal debt is owed to Eskom. National government has introduced support to relieve municipalities of debt to Eskom. Upon application by a municipality, the debt to Eskom up to the 31st of March 2023 will be written off over a 3-year period of equal annual tranches. This is providing municipalities complies with a set of conditions. These conditions include enforcing strict credit controls, enhanced revenue collection, and up-to-date payment of current account owed to Eskom.
The door is closed for Transnet in terms of a bailout at this particular stage. I think many were anticipating that there might be some financial support for Transnet given the mess that it's currently in. But because of Transnet's debts, it's going to be very difficult for them to persuade National Treasury as to why they should be receiving any sort of bailout. They first need to sort their house out before government can consider anything of that sort. What's also key and central here is that National Treasury has decided to change its conditions for Eskom when it comes to that debt relief package. Previously, it was non-interest bearing, and now that one condition has changed to interest bearing, which basically means it's going to be a lot tougher for Eskom to pay off that debt, but also there's going to be interest on that. And part of the reason why this is probably happening is because National Treasury is trying to prove a point to say you cannot just come knocking on our door, you cannot just have access to government's purse without there being certain conditions. They've obviously learned some really hard lessons in terms of previous state-owned entities just getting bailouts after bailouts. Our debt to GDP ratio is very worrying. The finance minister, however, doesn't believe or seem to think that we are running out of money. He says that nothing keeps him up at night, and he's trying his very best to have a balancing act here, despite the fact that the numbers, Sally, are really showing a very different picture. Let's listen to what the finance minister had to say about all of this.
I'm as a bit as I was in February. I don't get scared fairly easily. You know, if you look what we're saying part of the challenge we're facing is a growth challenge. And how are we responding to that growth challenge? I outlined that. If we can sort out 3 things, electricity, logistics, crime, I'll take care of the rest.
Several organisations also marched to Parliament ahead of the Finance Minister's medium-term budget policy statement. Build One South Africa leader Mmusi Maimane is leading a no tax increases picket. eNCA's Kevin Brandt has been keeping track of the story.
Well, just after noon, Bossa leader Mmusi Maimane addressed the crowd of supporters where they are still here towards my right. This is about a stone's throw from the City Hall, where this afternoon the Finance Minister will deliver that medium-term budget policy statement. And he addressed the supporters here with regard to government spending, as well as some of the key issues that they feel government should be focusing on. The key theme throughout this year has been that the lady here behind me is part of a pro-Palestine march, and they've been ordered to, just here in front of me, stopped by the South African Police Service from advancing closer to the City Hall. And many of the protesters are now still dwelling in this area. But back to the Busa protest picket here is where Maimane outlined some of the key issues that government should be focusing on, highlighting job creation, also reining in government spending, reducing the size of cabinet. That has been a theme that we've heard repeatedly throughout the years as part of efforts for government to then cut its spending. However, earlier today, also a briefing that I attended by the ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula, he highlighted that more should be done in terms of education, and rather that there should be no cuts when it comes to education and in particular healthcare. So there are a lot of activity ahead of the announcement from the Finance Minister this afternoon. Just listen to what Maimane told some of his supporters earlier, Masejo.
We have one of the largest states government that we've got in when you benchmark it internationally. We're spending more on debt servicing costs. We are looking after politicians and ignoring the people. And when you speak to the people, they are battling with high fuel prices. They are battling with the cost of food going up. Our people are struggling even to get to work. So our call today is that when we go inside to fight for the budget, we are calling to say there cannot be an increase in VAT. We reject that idea. We are also saying to them, rather than increasing taxes on the people, let's rather spend so that there can be economic growth.
Also on the periphery on Budget Day, Palestine supporters, SACP and SAFTU members marched to Parliament despite their permits being declined. Members have clashed with police. eNCA's Nobesutu Hechani has been following developments.
Trade unions who held pickets ahead of Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana's speech are demanding that government take decisive measures to address the current state of the economy. Both SAFTU and the South African Communist Party say South Africans are struggling to maintain their lifestyles or even afford basic necessities.
We have got experience that all the time when the Minister of Finance is doing his budget proposal, he's always cutting the expenditure, especially on where it is needed the most. He's cutting expenditure on the police, he's cutting expenditure on the hospitals, he's cutting expenditure in schools. And when he does that, we are affected as the working class.
When budget was granted Labour, Department of Labour had to terminate contracts of part-time commissioners. Who got affected? It is not bosses, it's not the bosses, but who? The workers, right? Therefore, the letters which he has written to all departments and spheres of government that they must contribute in the so-called austerity program must be abandoned.
We are requesting you to stop and to turn back where you come from. Police action will be taken against.
In a turn of events, Palestine liberation organizations picketing ahead of the speech decided to make their way to the joint seating to hand-deliver their memorandum, though their permit to march to Parliament was rejected. Some leaders clashed with police who threatened to arrest when some marchers were adamant about forcing their way to the City Hall.
We're also asking our government to support a full and comprehensive boycotts and divestments and sanctions package. So we cannot understand why we are prevented from marching to the National Assembly simply to hand over our memorandum. Why must we hand it over here to the police? They are not the state, they are not the government, they are an organ of state.
After negotiations relations between law enforcement agencies and anti-apartheid activist Alan Posak, police allowed the group to walk until the border of the city hall. Nabesuthu Ejana, Cape Town.
After the break, we'll look at some of the most hard-hitting and talked about eNCA interviews featured over the past 12 hours on eNCA. Welcome back to the day that was. I'm Pule Lichiti Jones. Our show is followed up on Finance Minister Enoch Godongwane's medium-term budget policy statement and got some much-needed analysis on what this means for South Africans. eNCA's Dan Moyane spoke to economist Dawie Ruud.
There's an undertone there. There's a clear message that budget cuts are coming and there's no more bailouts just for free and none currently for Transnet, for example, until certain things have happened according to the minister. There is also an extension of the SRD, that special COVID-19 social distress grant, by another year, that 24 billion rand being thrown in. That was expected as well.
Yes, indeed. Good afternoon to you. Well, we've heard all of this before. Okay, my first impressions, the budget of the Minister of Finance, I think the Minister is generally too optimistic in terms of his expectations for economic growth, as an example. I don't think we're going to see economic growth of 0.8% and certainly not close to 2% in 2 years hence. So I think too optimistic as far as that is concerned. And then there's something that we have to be aware of, and that is the Minister is quite, let's call it economic with the truth here, because there are certain of these figures that are very important to economists and to analysts and to the International Monetary Fund and the rating agencies. And those are figures like, for example, what the deficit is going to be, what the debt numbers are going to be. And clearly the Minister of Finance did not include many items in those figures. Let me give you one or two examples. In the case of Eskom, for instance, Eskom numbers are not included in there. The IMF previously already indicated that it should be included in there. In the meantime, Eskom's the finances deteriorated even further. We just heard yesterday they made another loss of 24 billion rand. And Eskom can't go on like this. And obviously the day is going to come when Eskom are going to ask for even more money. And that is not included in the deficit, or is not included in the deficit or in the debt numbers whatsoever. The same goes for the local authorities. The local authorities, the Minister of Finance promises that he's going to alleviate, write off, his words, about a third of the local authorities' debt. That's approximately 20 billion rand. That also is not included in the deficit, but it's also not included in the debt numbers.
Charges dropped due to lack of evidence. But is this the end of the road for the case against the man known to his thousands of TikTok followers as Dr. Matthew Lani? While law enforcement agencies remain mum, I spoke to a social media law expert who believes there is a case to answer to.
Whether you want to accept it or not, I am a doctor. I am a doctor.
Well, according to one legal practitioner, Bongani Matthew Lani is not yet off the hook, as there may still be a case to answer to. Section 39 of the Health Professions Act clearly stipulates that no person can perform any act pertaining to health if they are not registered in terms of the Act.
And similarly, in Section 40, it says that it is an offence to pretend to be a registered medical professional or to even use the title to lead people on to believe that you are a medical professional. So it is an offence at the end of the day. There are legal implications that are involved here.
On Tuesday, the controversial bogus doctor Lani walked free after charges were withdrawn against him. He was facing charges for impersonating a doctor. But Hall says the video content of Lani claiming to be a doctor could potentially incriminate him.
In many defamation cases, actually, they have used, Facebook posts and maybe tweets, and they've used that against people in court. And in fact, we have the Electronic Communications and Transactions Act, which also regulates the admission of electronic evidence. So it's very possible that it could be used against you.
And for Lani.
And then to my fans, they have been supportive from day one. They have been amazing. And then with my naysayers, people will always be opinionated. So it is live, it's okay.
Lani's lawyers told eNCA that they're yet to receive instructions from their client whether they'll be taking legal action against the Gauteng Department of Health. Meanwhile, the MPA says the matter is still under investigation. Pule Lichwiti Jones in Johannesburg. You may have to kiss your medical aid tax credits goodbye. Government plans to use those rebates to fund the first phase of the National Health Insurance. This was contained in a presentation to the National Council of Provinces. eNCA's Tumelo Mthotwane spoke to Nicholas Crisp.
I suppose let's start with what informed this decision that medical aid tax credits will be used to fund the NHI.
That's been on the cards for the best part of 10 years already, and it's in the bill, so it's nothing new. For those who have actually read the bill, they will have seen that it is covered as one of the options for moving funds. So the point of the exercise really is that if all funds are going to be paid by the National Health Insurance Fund once it's established, then we need to move them from wherever they are at the moment into the administration of the National Health Insurance Fund. And it's a question of sequencing of which of those sources of funding move at what point.
I mean, also with that being said, I'm sure there were concerns raised, Doc, when it comes to the medical tax credits. Let's talk about some of those concerns, perhaps. I'm sure you've also seen or heard of them as you address them in the NCOP around the constitutionality of this.
Yeah, Tumela, look, I think there's lots of opinion and there's lots of people who have different views and different angles. And who disagree with national health insurance and afraid of change and afraid of corruption and afraid of all kinds of things. But I think that what we have tried to explain over the past 20 years and in the period leading up to this through the National Assembly's Portfolio Committee engagements and now into the NCOP is that the current health systems, both that what we see in the public sector and the private sector, are now on a serious spiral of decline, and we are going to get in even bigger trouble than we are now if we don't act.
Stay tuned to the day that was. Coming up, the latest on the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial within a trial, right after the break. Welcome back to the day that was. Ampule Litchwiti Jones. Accused one in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial, Muzi Kaukulelwa Sibiya, was allegedly assaulted until he soiled himself shortly after his arrest. That's the contention by Sibiya's defense, who say their client was tortured into confessing. This emerged at the trial within a trial at the High Court in Pretoria, determining whether those confessions should be allowed as evidence in court. eNCA's Manqoba Mchunu has the story.
Kaukulelwa Sibiya maintains that Constable Jabulani Buthelezi was one of the officers who tortured him into making a confession. Buthelezi was part of a team of officers from the now disbanded SWAT unit in Ekurhuleni that arrested Sibiya in Tembisa on the 30th of May 2020. The defense says his torture started moments later.
After Litabong, after he was assaulted, accused number 1 messed up himself.
I do not know about that.
Yes, because that was a reason for you to take him so that he can change his clothes.
That is a lie before this court, because that was not the reason.
Previously, Buthelezi revealed how live rounds of ammunition were found in Sibiya's shack, but the police's conduct when arresting him has also been questioned.
The door was kicked open, his shack was searched, and he was taken further he was transported to Fosloras, where he was further assaulted and demanded to tell the truth about the death of Senzo Meyiwa.
I want to explain to the court that at the time and in that minute, when I was in the presence of the accused, there was no time when he was assaulted.
The defense also questioned why Sibiya spent so many hours with police before being taken to his cell.
So it means from midday on the 30th up until early hours of the 31st, that is only when the accused was detained for the first time.
That is correct.
What was happening all this time?
The investigating officer was still investigating.
Okay, no, it's fine.
More police officers are expected to take the stand as a trial within a trial continues. Manqoba Mchunu, Pretoria.
Beneficiaries of the public employment program in Durban have taken their frustrations to the streets. Thousands were left jobless when the eThekwini municipality abruptly terminated the program. Hundreds gathered at the Durban City Hall demanding answers. eNCA's Lethiwe Mdluli reports.
Workers who form part of the public employment program shut down one of the busiest streets in Durban, demanding answers from the eThekwini municipality. Thousands of these workers were left jobless without warning.
Sisaspendiwe emsebenzini without notice and basanise ama-contracts ukuthi okay awo 6 months but bona sisebenza 2 months base basinqamula ama-contracts ethu asikho happy sicela basiphendule.
The public employment program forms part of the presidential stimulus package and is pivotal to fighting unemployment. The beneficiaries of this program say the municipality treated them as if they weren't human beings. Initially contracted to work for 6 months, they only learned that the program had ended when they arrived at work, and after working for just 2 months. They are now demanding answers from the mayor and other city officials.
The message says there's no fund. Where's the money? Because there was a money for this program that was sent by National Treasury. This program is supposed to last until next year in June. Now they're telling us there's no money. The reason why we are here, we are asking Mayor, where is the money?
The workers have vowed to continue protesting outside the City Hall until the municipality reinstates the program.
For this month that we've been suspended with no warning, we need to get full salaries for this month. We want to get full salaries. No questions to that. We demand full salaries for this month.
So we're basically waiting for them to give in to our demands. It's actually not demands, it's things we have already signed for. They have already breached our contract. So we already, as a team, we're going to be here to fight and stand and get answers.
In a statement, the municipality says it was forced to terminate the program due to budget constraints. It says the budget for the year 2023 and 2024 was revised by the National Treasury, which affected its ability to retain beneficiaries. eThekwini Mayor Mxolisi Kaunda is also set to hold a media briefing on Thursday where he will address the issue. Lethiwe Mdluli, Durban.
It seems there is no end in sight to Joburg's water woes. Several parts of the city have been warned of impending outages due to planned maintenance. Johannesburg Water has also provided an update on ongoing efforts to stabilize supply. eNCA's Bafedile Moerane has been tracking that story for us.
Water crisis in parts of Joburg continues, while Johannesburg Water says there is an improvement to at least 35% of water storage capacity in all the reservoirs. Residents in areas like Brixton, Janhoff, Meyer and Crosby are now approaching 4 months without water.
In our area it's 4 months and it's still not back. So I doubt it's the infrastructure, because it's a blame game if you look at Joburg Water and Rand Water. Rand Water is saying that they're giving sufficient water to supplying sufficient water to Joburg Water. So then what is the problem?
And Joburg Water is citing several challenges.
Having inconsistent supply has resulted in our reservoirs not reaching the full capacity. So what happens is they become critically low to empty, and in order to recover these reservoirs, it takes sometimes days or weeks to recover them. So inconsistent supply is, I would say, our main challenge at the moment.
Despite the bleak picture painted, Joburg Water still insists there is no need to panic, but water authorities say measures are in place to improve the situation.
The interventions that we normally implement on the Joburg Water side on this particular system is we have started to close the outlets on both Reservoir 1 and Reservoir 2 on Hursthill every night between 9 and 4 in the morning. This is to build capacity for the reservoir system to feed during the day. So it means that during the night the areas are closed off in order to build capacity for the day.
But those measures are called comfort to many residents who've enjoyed the dry taps for months. Those we spoke to are now threatening to stage a sit-in at the City of Joburg offices until their water is fully restored. Bafedile Moerane, Johannesburg.
And that wraps this edition of The Day That Was. From myself and the team, bye-bye.